process. It is considering CBAM stainless steel wire production process. So this is a simple process in which there will be purchased precursor, which is your raw material, that is stainless steel rod. This will be produced in form of wire of stainless steel, which will be your final production. In this process, rolling mill is taken into consideration. For rolling, we need to feed in high-speed diesel consumption, natural gas which is in PNG form. You need to provide the electricity consumption to this, and from this there will be certain amount of scrap which will be generated, which will be excluded from your CBAM calculations. Now once we know about the process, we can get to know about the inputs or the raw materials or the raw inputs which we will be providing to this CBAM process, that we will take into consideration. Starting from this, you can see that we need to provide installation details. So these are the installation details: your name of organization, your reporting period, name of coordinator, factory address, and all those. Here the important things that needs to mention are your total production, that is in metric tons here, and your raw material, which is your purchased precursor. So this is 10,000 metric ton. Then this is related to your fuel consumptions. The first section here is considering the high-speed diesel consumption. So on month-on-month basis for this particular quarter, from October to December 23, the fuel consumption for diesel is provided here. You need to provide these details. The next thing here, the consumption is from the PNG, that is in the form of maybe SCM or kg, whatever you will provide, that will be okay. It is on month basis. You need to provide these values to the system. If you are having any other type of fuel consumptions, you can mention this type of consumption here. Okay. That can be fed it to the platform. The next thing is your electricity consumption. So the electricity consumption you need to provide on month basis, and you need to provide the segregation of non-renewable and renewable energy considering electricity consumption. So once we have this consumption and process into this section, like, we can get into the platform to see how this particular process is mapped into the platform. So in the platform, you can see that this particular node is the organization details node. So you will see organization details over here. The next node here suggests this is your installation. So you can add multiple installation here. You can just right click on the organization node and you can add installation here. Once the installation is added, you can add processes to it. You can add single process or multiple process as per your requirement. You can just right click on your demo like the installation node, and you can add production process. Once the production process is added, you can see that the next level nodes here will be automatically created from the system. The next thing what you need to enter is, in your CBAM goods you need to enter or you need to add your CBAM good. Once you add a CBAM good, you need to mention in which aggregated good category it comes up. Like is it a steel product, is it an aluminum product, or any other type which is applicable in the aggregated CBAM good category. You need to mention whether it is a primary product in your production process, what type of production routes you have followed to produce this particular stainless steel wires, then what type of CN codes. These are actually the final products which can be in different forms, and based on the CN code these are segregated. So you need to mention all your CN codes here. There are other details here which are optional. The next thing is your source stream calculation based. So in source stream calculation based, we will be adding your fuel consumptions. So this is, you can see heavy fuel oil, which is high speed diesel. This is in the input form right now. We are calculating, we are monitoring it in form of combustion method. This is the activity data in tons, which we saw in the data gathering template. The emission factor will be automatically populated in the system, but if you do have a more accurate factor, you can mention it, and then at the last you can see your emissions will be calculated, as well as the energy content will also be calculated. Similar to the diesel, like you can enter the PNG consumption as well, that is in the natural gas form. You need to mention the activity data. Your emission factor will be auto populated. After that, you can see at the end the fuel based on the fuel consumption, your emissions will be calculated. Source stream PFC, this is applicable if you are having chlorofluorocarbon. In this particular case, this is applicable. Right now in this example, it is not applicable. Source stream measurement based, this is applicable if you do have your CO2 or N2O calculated at your own end, then you can mention it in this measurement based source stream calculation form. The next thing is your indirect sources. The indirect sources contribute the electricity consumption. In the electricity consumption, you have to mention your monthly electricity consumption, and this is the emission factor for electricity consumption as per your like if you are utilizing it from grid, or like if it is produced at your own process, then you need to update this emission factor. Based on that, you can see the emissions are getting calculated over here. The next thing is your emissions and energy. In emissions and energy, there is a fuel balance. In fuel balance, you will get to know about your total fuel inputs. In GHG balance, you will be getting to know about your direct emissions, indirect emissions, and your total emissions. The next thing is production quantity. In the production quantity, you need to mention total amount produced per production group mentioned over here, as well as like you need to mention how much is the market share from your total production. The next thing here is the attributed emissions. So attributed emissions comes up from your heat, waste gases, or electricity exported. So heat, if it is imported or exported from your process, then you need to mention the amount over here and the emission factor. Based on that, the emissions will be calculated. Similar to the heat, the waste gases, for the waste gases, it is the same process. Like you need to mention the amount of the waste gases which is imported and exported, and the emission factor. Based on that, the emissions will be calculated. If there is any electricity which is produced in your production process, and if it is exported, then you can mention the exported electricity here and the electricity emission factor. From that, the total emissions will be calculated over here. Then the next thing over here is your purchased precursor. So this is your raw material that is in the form of a stainless steel wire rod. So its aggregate category is iron or steel product. You need to mention like what is its source country. You need to mention from which production route what total amount is purchased. So there is like this oil production route, from this the whole purchased total amount is coming from. There are no other production process right now in this process, so we can skip that. You need to mention your total amount which is consumed in your CBAM production. So everything which is whatever it is the raw material, is it the whole which is being consumed in your CBAM process, or like if there is any a non-CBAM consumption, then you need to mention over here. As well as like you need to mention your SEE direct and your electricity consumption or SEE indirect factor from your purchased precursor, which is your specific embedded emissions. And the last thing over here is the summary, in which you will get to know about your specific embedded emissions from your direct source, direct specific embedded emissions. This is indirect specific embedded emissions. If we sum up these two, we will get the total specific embedded emissions. The total specific embedded emission number is the most useful in this particular scenario, as it will be tons CO2e per ton production, and that's the number based on which EU will apply the taxes. Now we can move to the dashboard. You can select the reporting period. So right now we are reporting under fourth quarter of 2023. You can see these are your total emissions, these are your direct emissions, these are your indirect emissions, then SEE total. So this is the factor which is ton CO2 per ton production, and based on this your taxation will be applicable. This is your specific embedded emission from direct sources, and this is specific embedded from indirect sources, which may be the electricity consumption. You can see here this is like the source stream calculation based segregation. You can see this is coming from the heavy fuel oil, that is the high speed diesel, and this particular area is from your natural gas. So you can get a brief distribution about your different types of sources. This is coming from the PFC. If there is any applicable calculations from the source stream PFC, then here the calculations will appear. If there is anything coming from the measurement based approach, the emissions will come up here. This is your indirect sources, like the electricity consumption. Based on that, how much emissions are done. This is ton CO2 per production process. So this is the total emissions from your production process. This is carbon tax per production process. So as of now, EU has haven't like finalized any cost for tax deductions. but if we once we have that value, we can update it, and based on that you will get to know that how much you will be able to how much you need to pay the tax for each of your production process on your reporting period. Then the last thing over here is your CBAM report. So EU has already provided a CBAM communication template which is specifically introduced to report it back to EU. So the system will automatically generate this whole report for you based on all the inputs right now in the system which we have provided. Report is generated. Now I will be able to download that. Yeah, so you can see that your report is generated. You can see all the details over here. You can see the reporting period. All of your installation details are already there, which are coming from the system. This is your aggregated good category, which this is your production route. This is your relevant production process, which is wire of stainless steel. This is your purchase precursor. Now here you can see that this is your source stream calculation based approach calculations. So you can see the method was combustion. We were using the heavy fuel oil and the natural gas. Based on the activity data for that quarter, you can see the emissions are getting calculated here. Moving to the next section, which is emissions and energy. You can see this is your total fuel input, which is calculated over here. Then based on your GHG balance, you can see this is the total direct emissions and this is total indirect emissions. So it will sum up to this, which is 4039. That's total emissions, which we can see on the dashboard. The next is your process. So right now we were only having one process, and in that process you can see this is the total production amount, that is in tons. Okay, and out of that everything is being utilized, or everything is being utilized under the same process, or like everything is in the same market. Now you can see right now we were not having any import or exports related to heat or waste gases. That's why these are disabled over here from the system. And this is your electricity consumption in megawatt for the quarter. None of the electricity was exported in your process. The next thing is your purchase precursor. So in the purchase precursor, this was your total raw material. Based on that, this is the amount which is utilized in CBAM, and this is the remaining one which is in the non-CBAM good category. We have mentioned the SEE direct, that is specific embedded direct and indirect emissions for this purchase precursor in the system, that are being outputted here. Based on this, we can move further down to the report section. This is the report section which is for the processes. You can see all of the installation details here, the reporting range. These are your aggregated goods produced. These are your production process. These are your purchase precursors. Then moving to the next section, which is summary of products. So this is one of the product which you are actually producing, that is of CN code 722300, which is wire of stainless steel in coils coming from the production process, wire of stainless steel. You can see your SEE total. So this is the important factor over here, which is in ton CO2 per tons of production, and based on this you will be taxed based on this factor. This is your last and final whole report, which is summary of communication, providing the details for installation, providing the details for aggregated goods produced, production process, and your emissions from different methods, that is calculation based method, PFC, and measurement based. So this is your total direct emissions, this is total indirect emission from your electricity consumption, and this is the final total. At the last you can see this is summary of products, what we have saw in summary product section, that is the same thing over here. So this is, you can see all these things are automatically generated from the system, and this is the final report that you need to submit to EU or your export.